directors, staff, and everyone that has taken the time to watch this. I do appreciate it. My name is Clint Langrick. I'm the City of Platteville City Manager, and I will be leading you through the 2025 annual report for the City Manager's Office. As a disclaimer, this report is going to touch on not only the city manager's budget in the department, but also is going to have some context to overall operations. Here's the content of the presentation. Give you a minute to kind of glance at this, and by all means, you can hit stop and pause to further digest some of this information as we're going to be going through it rather quickly. As previously commented, this is going to touch on the city manager department, which includes 3 full-time employees, myself as the city manager. We also have a communication specialist and human resource manager. Underneath the department's budget, we also oversee the city attorney, who is contracted through Axley Law Firm. These are some of the major responsibilities assigned to the city manager, extensive list. One of the main components being the education and helping the Common Council determining strategic priorities, which is the premise of the presentation here today. And again, we'll breeze through these. If you need to stop them and further read them, I certainly encourage you to do that. Previous year's accomplishments, to pull out a couple of accomplishments from the department. At the top, you see the donation policy that we helped introduce. This was an initiative that allows for folks to meet expectations and marry up expectations with the city in making donations so that we can have a chance to evaluate the purposes of folks giving donations, and then also capturing that in an agreement type of a language so that future generations can respect and honor those donations and commitments from both parties. Also spent a lot of time last year working, of course, with the fire facility project, of which we've now reached groundbreaking in 2025 and will begin construction. Trailview development, which is efforts in trying to expand our housing inventory. Also had a response, of course, to our pool failure, of which the community in 2025 here has made by resolution or by referendum a decision to want to go ahead with that. The city council has honored that referendum decision, is now giving direction to staff to begin a funding solution to reconstruct. Trail expansion, looking to extend our amazing trail network. We've also been busy with Water Street Watershed on the east side of town and trying to solve some problems with stormwater management. Also working with our partners with the City Park project right across here from City Hall and trying to bring in some more camera capacities and updating bubbler and some electronics. We've also worked with our partners in bringing the first ever Wisconsin Rural Economic Development Summit to here in Platteville. Very successful event, and it is going to be the model that we used is going to be expanded into future years of summits from other communities across Wisconsin. Next year's goals will be very heavily involved yet with the fire facility project, strategic planning process, which in listening to our presentations from myself here and our directors is a great first step in that process, as we want to make sure that as we start talking about where we're going in the future, that everybody has a firm understanding on where we're coming from and where we're at right now. Comprehensive planning will also be a big component of that as we look to take a look at neighborhood planning on our Trailview development project, as well as a comprehensive park planning. Continuing some policy development, some of the items that have not yet been fully entertained has been special events planning, as well as refining our volunteer policy. Continuing to work with our owners group for the library transition project. As we continue to rent that space, we're hoping to gain further understanding on when and how we may be able to acquire that property as a city-owned property. Trail acquisition, working with our partners with the Platteville Community Arboretum and landowners on extending the trail along the southwest corridor, which will lead from Business 151 out to East Side Road, essentially kind of from Napa Auto Parts or so, and then taking you out almost to Southwest Health, as well as many other projects Again, the Trailview Development, Water Street Watershed Project, economic development. There's going to be plenty of stuff to stay busy in 2025. Switching outside of a department type of a view and more an organizational view, as we look at performance measures for the city manager, trying to find some historical comparisons kind of to put things in relationship around budget. Now, these next few slides are going to show comparisons of data that is provided through Wisconsin Policy Forum. It's important to remember that these are historic data points. This is coming from data gathered in 2022. We've seen a lot of different changes, as these other communities certainly have since 2022. And then also keep in mind, we don't have a lot of context around some of these numbers that you're going to be seeing. So rather than presenting these as this is a solutions that should point us towards what we should be doing, I'd like you to kind of reference these statistics as these might help guide us perhaps to questions on why are they different and what are some things that we might want to further look at. The first comparison here is a general government spending per capita. And you'll notice that most of these slides and the figures are going to be in a per capita kind of a format, which is to try to give the best apples to apples comparisons. But again, we don't know the full context of each of these other municipalities. But here you can see Platteville kind of falling in the mix in the middle-ish on our government spending per capita. The next two here on slide number 8 is you're seeing the street maintenance per capita on the left, and then our net fire EMS spending per capita on the right. And again, this is kind of, again, put in per capita versus a per street center line mile or to EMS responses and towards other types of demographics. Again, it's all put in a per capita. This slide 9, you're looking at then some data points that capture our net police spending per capita on the left, and then our net basic per capita on the right. And so we kind of broke the budget into the different chunks of general and public works and streets, and then our fire EMS, and now we have police here. And then the graphs on the right here kind of capture then the overall net spending of a budget. Slide number 10 on the left, you're looking at the net operating spending then per capita, the total operational expenses and taking out potential capital expenses. And on the right, you're looking at two different data sets overlapped. There's the property tax levy per capita, which is the bars and correlates with the numbers on the left. And then that is the data points going over top of that then with the dots is your residential share of that levy. And that correlates with the percentages on that. And the residential is put into it would be residential versus industrial or commercial. So what share of that levy percentage is coming from residential properties? Slide number 11. You're looking at shared revenue per capita. And then on the right, you're looking at the debt per capita as the bars. And then the overlay on top of that with the dots is the percentage of the state limit. The state sets how much debts that a city can incur, and then it represents the percentages on the right show. So again, this is in 2022, and you'll see Platteville is tracking at about 1,800 per capita of debt that is incurred at that time, and about 40% of capacity within the state limit. Of course, that is potentially going to change if we do a borrow for a pool in 2025. Looking at slide number 12, you're going to see the comparisons of fund balance per capita, which is represented by the bars and the numbers on the left. And this is going to be an overlay then with the net, the percentage of net operating spending represents the dots, and that correlates then with the percentages on the right. The bar graph on the right side of slide 12 then is the total income per tax return. And so again, these are put on here as just comparisons with the neighbors. Again, they lack the context to really say solutions on what necessarily we should be doing. But at the same time, they might help us identify perhaps questions in which we want to further explore on why there are differences and what the differences might be. As another set of measurements that the city may be able to reference, there are other indices or indexes out there that we can kind of take a look at. One of those is AARP. They have a livability index, which is kind of centered towards more senior type of living. Another example of a commercial type of a index is Area Vibes. And you can see our numbers on there, 55 and 100 for an AARP with a lens on retirement potentially destination or senior living type of destination. Area Vibes, a little bit more younger clientele kind of gravitating towards that. And you can see we score it a 79 to 100. In 2025, I hope to research what what demographics, what data points impact these indexes and or indices, and then perhaps seeing what is in our control as a city that we might be able to have an impact on these numbers and raising them up, and what types of factors might kind of be outside of our ability to control, and decide if these are things that we want to try to make meaningful impacts on, and then promote these scores to help advertise to our for purposes of retention or for recruitment of new families. So stepping now out of an organizational view in a city as whole and back into the department budget, the 2024 city manager budget, which was an appropriation of about $354,350, again covering the positions of a city manager, a communication specialist, and a human resources manager, as well as attorney fees and ancillary types of expenses that all fall underneath there. This is an end of the year kind of snapshot on some of the overages and underages we experienced in that budget with some explanations. As you can see, we did have some overages in attorney professional services, but we're hoping to have that offset with some lines of underages that we had available in the special counsel line item. We did have professional services that stayed under, and we had some remaining amounts. We did use, the intent was to use these funds, or the intent is to divert these funds possibly to a CMS solution that's a less expensive option that we're exploring. So we're hoping to use these towards Delta 3 billing for the Water Street watershed project and the engineering work that they did in 2024. We also had some other supply type of items in which we had overages, but these were all offset with donations and revenues through grants that were received and other line items and other budgets to offset. And then we did have some remaining funds in our contingency fund, which will go towards help applying the overall general fund balance and covering other shortages from other department line items. A brief summary on our CIP, or our capital improvement projects. We did not have any major projects allotted specifically to the city manager budget or department in 2024. However, in 2025, we do have the city park improvement project that will be hopefully coming up early or mid-year, and working with several different partners on bringing that into completion. In the previous year, we did receive several donations that we're very grateful for, and we're anticipating that the same donations potentially will be considered and made for us in 2025. Strategic plans, in looking at one of the major ones that kind of sits on the city manager's desk, we had the strategic plan of 2021 through 2023. As reported in several meetings, this plan has kind of reached its conclusion. We should be proud of the many successes that we had in reaching those types of goals. And we'll be referencing this, of course, as we start here in 2025 with our strategic plan process and our comprehensive planning processes. From a director's vision on what's going well, and this kind of, again, kind of is a vision that kind of comes outside of the department and stretches into the organization as a whole, is that the city has been very, very blessed and is doing very well with our continued collaboration with our partners. We continue to receive many generous donations from our partners, and it makes so many of our projects that are in the realm of education, recreation, and entertainment possible, and for us to continue providing those types of services. Another victory or a win was that we still retain a very high quality of workforce despite enduring what could be seen as a rebuilding or realignment year. I would urge that while we continue looking forward into future budgets, that we consider making sure that we allow for cost of living increases and plan progression, as we are still trying to catch up with our last Carlson study and the compensation plans that came from that, as well as, if possible, minimizing impacts to the employee benefit package with benefits. We did have a slight rebuilding year last year with about 17 of our 75 full-time positions experiencing some movement, the people coming, people going. As part of that 17, though, it's important to note that some of those were promotions or lateral types of movements in which one employee perhaps moved up to the next opportunity and position of authority, thereby making their full-time position vacant that we had to then fill that. So overall, 22.6 of our full-time positions did experience a change in personnel in the year. To put this in context, our current average tenure for our full-time employees is about 9.5 years as a mean average and about 6 years as a median average. And to put that in relationship, then, Bureau of Labor Statistics recently has posted that the average median for a public employee with their current employer is about 6.2 years median. So we still are about meeting the average of what we would expect for a public service employee. Another thing that is going well is that our budgets each year are built with financial solvency, and we do have some capacities to respond to threats and opportunities. As seen here early in 2025, we've had some unexpected grant opportunities that have come up, in which it does take some funds to be able to put together applications, as well as unforeseen and challenging situations like deductibles for insurance claims and hail damages. The director's vision again on where some of our struggles might be, and this is kind of department and also organizational type of a consideration, is that we continue to have struggles with financial pressures and maintaining operational services under levy limit constraints. Now, the state did a terrific job in helping provide another revenue flow for us with increased revenue sharing, in which now we receive 1 out of 5 cents or a penny out of a nickel, or 20% of total state revenues through sales tax is now distributed pro rata down through local governments. But we're still coming up against constraints on how much annually we can raise our levy limits to keep up with operational expenses. Essentially, the cost of doing business is outpacing the ability we have and constraints we have on raising revenues, as well as maintenance and reporting and education. We're trying to put together a maintenance program and reporting scheme that can help educate the city manager and common council members to understand the true needs that we have in maintaining our infrastructure, whether that's roads, buildings, grounds, equipment, and our fleet. We're hoping to have a pilot type of a report put together for 2025 as we enter that budget year and that CIP year, and then putting in a more robust system with help from the University of Wisconsin Senior Project on building potentially a maintenance and a asset management database to have better transparency on our needs. And so with that too, then deferred maintenance and capital improvement projects is a continued challenge that we have. Service pressures, these are kind of the pressures we receive from the public and from other different facets that kind of direct where our actions go. Public perceptions is an increasing concern as we have more and more folks that express themselves either on social media platforms or in public meetings in large on expressing the missed expectations that they might have. And we do have challenges on addressing those concerns without overtaxing our resources, and we do have to balance that. We also have pressures that we have to consider with director transition. A lot of our senior management here at the city will likely be transitioning out in the next 5 years, expecting about half of them to be leaving their positions. So we are increasing our focus on continuity planning and leadership transition so that the next folks in those seats have an understanding of what the day-to-day operations look like and potentially what some of our operating procedures are, as well as we have increasing pressures for that long-range forecasting on maintenance. And some of this is catalyst of such things as our unfortunate pool incident with the pool breaking catastrophically, and having mechanisms in place to monitor that so that our partners that are coming forward with different donation funds, that they feel comfortable in knowing that the city has a thumb on the pulse on keeping up with all the maintenance needs. Director's course of actions, and again, from both a budget level and an organizational level, this is kind of, if we had underneath our current trends, how do we see the budget and the organization continuing to work? I would say that we can maintain at a budget level, again, with the city manager, HR, and communications, underneath a small incremental increase of levy limits, understanding that we have very limited ability for adding more functions to those existing positions. We do have challenges when myself or our communication specialist or our HR manager is absent on trying to fill those specialty positions and functions with other people, as well as continuity training become a challenge. From an organizational perspective, underneath the current trends, I would anticipate efforts to try to maintain our cost of living with our compensations for our employees, but having to continually evaluate our benefits packages for incremental changes in order to try to meet the increased costs of healthcare expenses and premium increases. Back to a budgetary level, I would anticipate that we'd be able to maintain our current staff with with what has been our trend increases over the last few budgets. Optimally, if we were to invest more money into the functions of city manager, HR functions, and communications, it would come down to about 3 different software packages. The first one being human resource information systems, to give us a little bit more of a robust look at tracking some of our employee data. Second option would be communications. Our website, while it is functional, could use a potential upgrade or redevelopment or overhaul. And another item that could certainly benefit us would be a community engagement data platform. And this is enhanced community feedback that allows for more real-time data and analytics and surveying capabilities to help get a better feel for making decisions through the Common Council on understanding what the community's needs are. If we were entering in discussions on how to reduce at the city manager budget level, in context of if we wanted to talk about reducing the quantity of services provided through that budget and that department, some of the options would include the reduction of contracted services, which would displace some of the work that we currently contract out, whether it's for grant writing, some of the studies that we have done, helping augment some design work, that could be eliminated, and those functions would go away, or we would have to try to find room in existing staff, resources, and time to try to do those in-house. Other items might be our contingency fund. We do carry $10,000 for the discretion of the city manager to cover unforeseen expenses through the year. Optimally, that money is staying whole and helping us with the end of the year covering different overages that we might have, but we could eliminate that out. It would leave us in a situation, though, where the city council for unseen expenditures would have to do continual budget amendments. If we're going to do a reduction in quality, from, again, maybe an organizational perspective, there could be a reduction in attorney fees, bringing that down and relying more and more on staff to do the research to try to figure out what the best legal answer is to some of our problems. But of course, with that, it would increase some of our risk and liabilities and exposure. We could also consider staff reduction of eliminating or reducing positions or hours of a human resources manager, communications specialist, or a city manager. Many of those functions then would have to be absorbed with the directors, staff, or possibly reorganization to like a city mayor type of a model. So in conclusion, in looking at, again, the budget perspective for the department as well as the organization at whole, I'd say that we are in a stable position, which is good, but we'll likely be reaching levy constraint limits in the approaching years. And shared revenue increases will likely not increase to a level where we can keep pace with the incremental increases in operations. We will need to consider actions in prioritizing services and making decisions on reductions in quantity, quality, or both in order to keep things solvent and in a good financial position. Balance as we approach our comprehensive planning and our strategic planning. It's going to be important that we have stretch goals that will continue to advance the community, but also ensuring that we have sustainment goals lined up to preserve the essential and cherished functions and services that we have here in Platteville. And then, of course, want to take a moment to appreciate the community at whole and all the countless efforts made by donors and volunteers and all the folks that make many of our wonderful projects happen. So again, this is all put together for folks to kind of digest as we get into strategic planning, as we get into comprehensive planning, and as we engage in conversations on what will be a 2026 budget and a 2026 CIP. Thank you again, and if you have further questions or comments or concerns, by all means, you can reach out to me.